Hey everybody, welcome to episode 10. We've hit the double digits of the Fitless podcast. I am John D'Ambrosio. I am with, of course, as always, Blain, and we are here to bust some fitness myths.
Let's do it.
So, one thing we're going to jump right in because we've got something that we both get asked a lot. Blaine probably way more so than me. People say chest or biceps or legs. What's the best exercise to do? Um, Blaine, how do you answer that?
I find that most people want to go to extremes. This is the number one question I get. What's the best for fill in the blank, like John alluded to, an exercise, or what's the best for diet, or what's the best supplement, or what's the best sleep schedule or circadian rhythm? And without fail, I've learned to respond with, what will you do? Because
Yes.
as long as I've been doing this, I don't know that there is a best fill in the blank for fill in the blank again. I don't know. Like, so it sounds corny, but the people that reach out to me online, I don't know you. I don't know if you're drinking heavily. I don't know if your sleep schedule's messed up. I don't know if you're snacking on gummy bears. So what I realistically tell them to do, because I think it's a psychological impossibility to be able to lie to yourself. I think you can, I don't know, that's a different argument for a different day. I think you can be delusional, but I think it's very, very difficult to lie to yourself. You can lie to your dog, you can lie to your boss, you can lie to your spouse, you can lie to your friends. But if you sit down in a room and write down 5 to 10 things that you know you're screwing up, you know what you shouldn't be doing. Most people know exactly what they should be doing. They just don't take the initiative to do it. So out of those 5 to 10 things, just start crossing one off at a time. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what I think is best if you won't do any of it anyway. Because I don't know if you have a night shift. I don't know if you're stressed at work, stressed in your marriage. I don't know anything about these people. So to just give somebody a blanket cookie cutter answer of do this to get this result, I think is an impossibility.
I agree. And to kind of angle it towards the exercise selection, because I get this a lot. People say, for example, I got this week. What is the best tricep exercise? And, there's a lot of good exercise. There's a lot of horrible exercises out there too, but there's a lot of good ones. And they say, well, don't you have to have your elbow up because then you're putting the long head in and getting that used? Well, yeah, that's great to be able to really hit the long head and then the other two heads as well. But if it's something he's like, yeah, but I have shoulder pain, I can't. Well, then that exercise, as good as it may be, is not going to be something that you could do. So going right back to what you said, Blaine, if you're not going to do it, or if it's going to hurt you every time you do it because I can't get my shoulders over my head, then don't do it. Do a press down. Be strict with it. Do something else. What about incline bench or regular bench? Which is better? Which do you enjoy more? Which are you going to be able to use? Which feels better? Which one doesn't bother certain aspects? If you really like them both, maybe you could rotate them, do 2 months on one and 2 months on the other. You're not going to notice this massive difference in your physique because you've done one exercise over another. Because in the end, if you're training properly, they're all going to be pretty much equal. You're going to take the muscle to failure. There is going to be growth occurring as long as you have enough recovery. It's really a matter of preference. Am I off on that?
No, I don't think you're off at all. The only reason, the fact that you alluded to shoulder pain, the only reason after my remodel I purchased the seated dip is because I had so many clients that were having problems with the chest press and the overhead press because I have a lot of pickleballers, I have a lot of tennis people, and their shoulders accrue injuries or just,
Hmm.
tendonitis, discomfort, whatever. But nobody ever has a problem pushing down. Anybody with shoulder pain, when you're pushing down, it's always coming up off of that plane. But I tell people, they're like, oh, well, we're not doing the chest press, we're just doing the dip. I said, even if I only owned this dip, do you think your pecs know if they are pushing in a horizontal or vertical plane? They have absolutely no idea. The muscle fibers are going to recruit themselves sequentially. If you train to failure, you're just going to burn out. I mean, I don't think big picture, zoom out 300,000 foot view. If you only did the dip for your chest, I think you'd get a great chest, shoulders, and triceps.
I agree with that 100%. And I think it's great that you brought up the dip because doing body weight dips versus doing a dip machine, there is a biomechanical difference there. And there are people who cannot do a body weight dip just because it does stress the shoulder. The machines, for the most part, the good ones, are really designed to take that stress off. So the fact that, and I've seen video of the way your machine works. It's very cool. So I think that was a great purchase. But yeah, if you have access to that, then great, do that. Because again, like you said, end of the day, or end of the year, end of 5 years, your development is going to be pretty darn close. Unless you say, well, I'm going to be on stage and they're judging me for muscle symmetry and I have the ability, with or without exogenous hormones to build a massive physique, yeah, then you're going to have to get a little pickier and say, well, I need to have a little more symmetry with this part of my body, the front delt to the rear delt or something like that. Yeah, you're going to be a little more picky in the exercises you choose. For 99% of the general public, it's really just about getting stronger, getting more functional, and it doesn't really matter. You just have to have an exercise that you're going to do, you're going to stick with it, and it's not going to be something that hurts you because you think, oh, wow, well, the best exercise is squat, but when I squat, it just destroys my knees and my back. Then don't do it. Do the leg press. There's nothing wrong with the leg press.
Yeah, and the specific dip that I purchased was called the Hoist Rocket version. It's just like ROC-IT. I don't know if that's just a little acronym or their little trendy thing, but the seat rocks back with you to keep you in perfect alignment. So I know there's some people that say that's gimmicky. If it's gimmicky, it works, man, because it doesn't keep you in that forward-leaning position like a lot of seated dips do in traditional gyms where your butt wants to come off the seat. This seat rocks back with you and keeps your chest, shoulders, and triceps in perfect alignment. And the fact that predominantly the majority of my clients are 60, 70, and 80, that's just great for them because they don't have to get into any awkward situations, and the seat rocks back with them. So had I purchased one just for myself, I probably would have made a different purchase, but I'm also purchasing for the people I'm servicing as well. So that's why I made that choice, and I love that piece.
And again, I love that it does that. And not to say, oh, this is the best exercise. But again, if you're going to do a dip, they do have machines in the gym, and you put a seatbelt on so you don't get lifted up. But that rocking really does, because as you're moving, that I love what it does to the anatomy to prevent undue stress with some people if they have a weakness in some part of their shoulder, and a lot of people do, like you said, pickleball. As you get older, the shoulder is not the most stable joint, and people just abuse the heck out of it because you think, oh, I got to work chest, so I'm going to do bench press, incline press, decline press, over the head press behind the head. I'm going to do pull downs behind the neck, and the shoulder just takes such abuse. Giving it a break with something like this is a great option. Again, if you don't have that, press downs don't stress the shoulder at all. So again, just we're talking triceps here, but look for any exercise that is, again, something you could do that's not going to stress you out. Like you've said, last episode you talked about the trap bar deadlift, and you got that, and you're like, why the heck did I do this? I'm too tall. But you could say, well, this is such, it's a full body exercise. It's supposed to be so great. But for you, that would be a mistake. Maybe someone who's, 5'7", 5'8", maybe that's a good choice. You have to kind of gauge the exercises you pick based on your anatomy and what works best.
Yeah, very true. The trap bar was a terrible purchase. I only have one client out of 60 that uses it regularly, and it just sits there and collects dust because every time I stare at it, I'm not loading that. I'm just not. I'm too tall for it. It wins. I give up. I'm waving the white flag on it.
And I love that too, because a lot of people are dogmatic, and it's like, well, I have to do the big five directly the way they're written, or I need to do, there's so many routines out there, and they're afraid to substitute because they feel like I'm not being true to the protocol and I'm not going to get the same benefit. Not true at all. That is a huge myth that people kind of stick with, and that's how people get injured, because they do exercises because, well, that's the way it was written. That's what Dorian Yates did, or whoever the latest bodybuilder is. It's like, are they really doing those exercises? What are they going to be looking like and functioning like in 5 years from now? And are you going to get the same supposed benefit if you do, if I switched exercise, so now I'm going to look like garbage because I didn't follow it to the T. But people really believe that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of, you saying people are dogmatic, I'm going to go in a slightly different direction because I got your text last night about, we're going to talk about what people view as best. And I thought to myself, if I had a very much smaller space and I didn't want to be dogmatic at all, and I wanted to train at home and I didn't have to train others, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this. I was thinking of what is the bare minimum I would have to purchase in order to get a great physique. And I thought about my answer, and even I believe, and again, it's not quote unquote best, but I think if you've got a very small space, if you've got a little bit of money to spend and you want to train yourself and you want to get a very good physique, the only things that I think you would need to purchase for a bare minimum, I think obviously a leg press, I would keep that. And then I would
Definitely.
get one of those weight assisted chin up dip machines where the counterbalance takes the weight off so you don't have to. And I think if you get really good at pull ups, if you get really good at dips and you get really good at the leg press, I think that's 90%. I mean, I could be wholeheartedly incorrect. Yeah, sure, there's some stabilization muscles you may or may not be hitting, but I think your rear delts are getting cooked with the pull down, your front delts and your, side is getting cooked, your chest, shoulders, and triceps on the dip, your back and biceps with the pull-up, and the leg press is hitting your quads, hamstrings, calves. If you want bare minimum, I think you can get a great physique with two pieces of equipment. But what say you?
I agree. I think that is a really good point because the leg press you can also use as a calf press
Yeah.
if you want to, do a separate exercise, which I like doing. So you're getting the legs, you're getting the glutes, you're getting the hamstrings. Granted, you're not isolating the hamstrings, you're not isolating the quads, but foot placement can change where the tension is. Higher up could shift it more towards the glutes, lower down more towards the quads. But the hamstrings have to. Anytime a muscle contracts, the antagonistic muscle has to help to stabilize. Otherwise, you just flip. So you're getting that there. And then, yeah, as long as you're able to do, even with the assist, a dip, and it's not a shoulder issue. Dips depend, you can lean a little more forward and you're getting more chest. You could be more upright, you're getting more triceps. Pull-ups are fantastic because you're getting a great lat workout. You switch hand position, it changes things a little bit. You do pull-ups versus chin-ups. Again, it's really just hand position, but you can get more bicep dominant, more back dominant. You're getting the traps in there as well. I think that those are great choices if you're just looking to say, I want absolute minimum, because you're getting all of the major muscle groups, and because of that, all of the auxiliary ones that kind of go with it. And we've talked about this. Studies have shown if you're working the major muscle groups, you don't need to do the isolations for the triceps and the biceps and such. I enjoy doing them. I would not pull them out just because, for me, it's just fun. But you're getting all of that with just those three pieces or two pieces of equipment that allow you to do at least three movements, usually more. I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, I don't really think if I had to minimize my space and I only had those two pieces and that's all I did, I don't think I would look much different. Obviously, I have more pieces of equipment and I'm going to split it because, to your point, we have more toys to play with, so I'm going to play with them. But if I wanted bare bones minimum, I would get a chin dip machine and a leg press and call it a day, and I don't think I would look too much different. You want to do abs, you can do crunches in front of your TV. You can, to your point, with all the different handles on that thing, I don't know. I just thought I'd go in a different direction and just say bare minimum. Not that that's best, but if people want to know what's bare minimum, if they have a couple grand to spend and you want to save space and time, you can get a great physique with two pieces of equipment.
You can, and if you're strong enough to be able to do the chin ups and the dips without the assist, it's even cheaper because then it's just one piece of equipment that's just got the dip bars on it, the chin up bar. It's got the handles for you could grab neutral, you could grab pronated, supinated. It doesn't matter. So if you could do these exercises unassisted, then you just start with that, and as you get stronger, you get a weight belt, and you just slowly add weight. So it could be
And
even cheaper.
you could, but I'd say the majority of the population is not going to be able to do an unassisted dip or a chin up.
True. I mean, if you're training people, definitely not. But I mean, if
No.
you're buying equipment for yourself, I'm sure you could do, you could do it and say this is great. But you may end up saying, well, I'm going to try a variation like this, and it's much tougher. So I'm going to need that assist because you could play with so many different positions just on that one piece of equipment that the goal is always to make the exercise as hard as possible and as safe as possible, and doing so could make it to the point it's like, wow, I can't even get two unassisted, so I'm glad I have this pad that I can put under my knees and put the pin in and go.
Yeah, utilize the counterbalance. That's why it's there.
Yeah. So going along with this, another question I get a lot, and you, I'm sure, again, get it way more than me, rep speed. Should I do 10-10? Should I do 5-5? 3-3. What's the right thing to go? And I want to start this off with there is a myth out there that, and I don't know how it ended up there, but that high intensity training and super slow are the same thing. They're not. Arthur Jones never recommended super slow. He actually kind of scoffed at it, whether he was right or wrong. But I'm just saying they could be, you could do them together or you could do them totally separate. You could do a traditional regular high frequency workout and still go super slow. You could do a high intensity workout at, I wouldn't recommend ballistic speeds, but you can, and it would still be high intensity. One would still be super slow. They are different. So a lot of people conflate, oh, I'm doing high intensity. Oh, are you doing 10-10, 5-5? Like, you could do 1-1 if you really wanted to. It's still high intensity if you're training to failure. But that all said, where do you, as far as I'm sure you get a lot of questions, and I know training at a slower speed, especially if you're coaching somebody, is safer, easier to kind of tell when they're ready to go up in weight, because if you're not really tracking any sort of cadence, you kind of lose, I got an extra rep. Or was it because you went a little faster? Was it because maybe you didn't pause at the bottom and you bounced up? So there are things that are important in there if you're tracking and to prevent injury. But what do you always say to people when they ask this question? Because again, I think it's very individual.
So, zooming out big picture, muscles are not capable of cognitive thought and they have absolutely no idea what rep speed you're going at. So, I find slower to be harder. I did super slow nonstop for about 3 years. I've just now transitioned to, I'll do the first rep about super slow and then I transition to about a 5 second positive, maybe a 7 second negative. That being said, one, I don't, as long as you train to failure, big picture, I don't think it's going to make a difference. As far as training others, that gets touchy because I start everyone with super slow because most people that come in have absolutely no conception of lifting weights correctly, and slower, to your point, keeps it safer. My, main point is to keep people injury free and moving in a forward progression. As you get to know people, there are some clients that you cannot tell to speed up whatsoever, because if you tell them to transition, and it's hard to verbally articulate terminology like smooth drive to me means turn slow and then pick it up once you know you're bogging down.
Mm-hmm.
But the second with some clients, you tell them you can speed up a little bit on the positive, they come down, they use the momentum and they gun it out of there and you cannot speed them up. I'd say half of them right now are probably, I'll do the first 2 reps super slow. I can tell when they're bogging down. I'll tell them to do the turn slow. Now drive as fast as you want, because they're that good at lifting to know they're not forcing it out of there. And in all actuality, they're probably taking 4 to 6 seconds on the positive. And then as they really get bogged down, I still have them do the negative slowly and I'll help with the last rep. But it's an individual to individual basis, because you get 60 clients, 30 of them might listen, 30 you cannot speed up. I have to keep it a super slow speed with the slow turns because they will use excessive force and momentum to fire out, and I just don't like that, and it craps the bed on the whole set. Just because anybody, to your point, well, I got an extra rep. Yeah, but you forced it. Anybody can cheat a rep. Mm-hmm. You can't cheat the time. And predominantly my clients are not in here for bodybuilding aesthetics. They want longevity. They're here because they've got some osteoarthritic issues. They want just longevity. So they're not looking to look good in a bikini or walk around in a tank top. So they're not, the fact that I'm pushing them as hard as they do, they don't care if they're going 10-10, 8-8. I just want to keep a slow cadence. I want to push them as hard as I possibly can. But to rep speed, I liked super slow. I got really strong at it. I think I'm genetically maxed out, so I don't think it's going to make a lick of difference. I vary my cadences all the time. I don't think it makes a lick of difference on any of it, to be honest with you. I think I'm as strong and as big as I'm going to get. So I don't know, whatever feels natural to you, as long as you're not using excessive force, momentum, as long as you're not popping out of turnarounds and keeping the rep cadence smooth and making your musculature do the work and not the excessive force, I think you're on the right track.
And I agree 100%. And I have, because I've done this myself, I don't have, the luxury of having a gym in my house like some people. So I'll go to facilities, and some of them, the equipment is not either the best equipment or not the best maintained equipment. So if you're trying to go slow, you're getting so much friction because maybe they haven't been oiled, the chains or the pulleys have not been cleaned in a while. So you end up with this staccato move where you're almost not, you're getting breaks in between. So when you're on a piece of equipment like that, you have to kind of make up for it by moving a little faster so you're not losing some of that the resistance because of a deficiency in the machine, and then maybe you don't use that machine once you realize that. Um, and another thing that's kind of, at least I feel is important as far as the turnarounds. I've tried working with people in different things. Sometimes, they'll get the slow turnaround, but a lot of times, even if I ask them to pause, they'll pause, say at the bottom, and then I'll say, okay, go. They drop a little bit and then go. Or, pull down. It's the same thing. They'll pause, great, and then they let it up a little bit and then go. People are so prone to try to use momentum, get that running start, even if you kind of direct them to stop or the slow turnaround. They'll do the slow turnaround and then all of a sudden look for a way to kind of like boost it a little bit. And I think part of that is, again, the misconception that we're in the gym to make the weight move versus we're in the gym to work the muscle. And you probably see this pretty often. I mean, I think it's just natural. It's part of ego. It's part of maybe the way we're wired to just, we got to get this off of us. We've got to make it move. So we're going to do whatever we need to do. It's like you're going to push a car. You're not just going to get against the car and then just slowly increase the pressure. You're going to go back and give yourself a good start so your mass is behind it. But we're not moving a car in the gym. We're trying to actually build and work the specific muscles for that, whatever machine or exercise we're on. And I think people miss that.
Yeah, to your point, I'm going to go first address the equipment because I didn't think about that. And every once in a while, I don't know why I do it. It's just a change of scenery. I'll go up to my HOA gym, and the equipment up there is absolutely atrocious. As nice as this place is, they have pieces from Cybex from 1993 that do not get maintained. And to your point about the friction and the sticking points, oh my God, because my stuff, I wipe down the guide rods with microfiber towels. I obviously clean the machines after every single client. And even though once a year I still have a company come in and disassemble and reassemble all of my equipment. And the last time the guy was here, he started taking one of my pieces apart and he went, dude, you could have told me this stuff got installed yesterday. He goes,
Wow.
I'm used to working in commercial gyms where things get the crap beat out of it. I'm like, dude, do it anyway. I'm giving you the couple $100. And he disassembles and reassembles all my stuff versus my commercial gym or my HOA gym that the equipment is just atrocious. It's not maintained. The guide rods are sticky with rust on them. And I could feel every little bump in that. So yes, you're probably going to have to use a little bit of excessive force to get through the sticking points versus well-maintained equipment where there is no friction or sticking points and every rep is smooth as silk because the equipment is maintained correctly. And I already lost track of the second thing. What did you end with? Because I had something to say.
Bouncing with people trying to going through a set, and then instead of the pause, they'll kind of
Oh,
drop it a little
that's what I
bit.
was going to say. When you're training people, it sounds kind of silly, but I had to learn that vocabulary matters. Like you said the word go, don't ever say go when you're training anybody. I learned that. Doug Simmons, I think, taught me that. Like, especially when they're about to start a set and you got the stopwatch, you say begin smoothly when you're ready. Because when people hear go, they fire it.
Boom.
Yes. It doesn't matter where in the set. Don't ever say go. Say transition smoothly. Say I want to see a nice slow turn, and then you can smooth drive through it. I really had to work over the years on the vocabulary that I use. Because you can't say, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. Because no matter what they're on, they're going to fire it. When you say smoothly begin when you're ready, and it sounds silly, but the more you work on the vocabulary and the more you smooth them out as the sets progress, especially when they're new, the first 6 to 8 sessions, like I am on them. Every rep, and then it gets to the point where I'll be quiet for a couple. They're like, oh, is everything okay? And I always tell them, if you have me silent, you're on the right track. I'm not going to let anything go. Because once you get them dialed in after the first 4 to 6 sessions, it's usually a pretty well-oiled machine. You've just got to be conscious of the vocabulary you use. I remember Doug said never said go, and I forgot, and I said it a couple times, and it popped in my head. Smoothly begin when you're ready. I want to see a nice slow turn, smooth drive through it. Don't ever use any vocabulary that has anything to do with force or momentum or speed.
That makes sense. No,
So
that's
if you're going to train people in the future, don't say and go, because you're going to get the
right.
exact opposite of what you want.
I like that. That's a very good pointer. Talking
Yeah.
about well-oiled machine, I'm just jumping back to poorly maintained equipment. I remember I would go to it was a racquetball club, but they had a full suite of the original Nautilus blue machines.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing.
Old
But
school.
Yeah, but they were in such horrible shape that the chains were all
Oh,
gunked up, and they all had chains back then. There were no
yeah.
like pulleys, and you go to use some of them worked okay, and other ones were just an abomination. It's like all they needed to do is have somebody come in and maintain them. They ended up getting rid of them all and getting in Cybex machines, and I was just like,
Horrible
oh
choice.
no, you had this it was just I couldn't imagine what it was like in its prime when the machines were brand new. I just wish they just cleaned them up, which wouldn't have taken much. I mean, nothing was broken. It was just the chains were so gunked up that people couldn't use them anymore. And instead, they just let's ditch them all and get in new equipment. And
Yeah, it's
it was a
unfortunate,
sad day.
man. Going from Nautilus to Cybex is like turning in your Maserati for a Toyota Corolla and being like, "Oh, this is going to be just as good." Like, no, it's not, man. You should have maintained the Maserati.
So true. It was a sad day, and I didn't even appreciate Nautilus the way I do now. I mean, one of the gyms I go to, and I go to it. I'll drive 40 minutes for a 15-minute workout, just because they have Nautilus machines there that I really like. They're not the original Big Blue, but they're much better than most of the other equipment out there. But you find a good piece of equipment. I mean, you have a whole gym full of good equipment. You just don't want to ever leave that gym. You never want it to close because it's like, wow, I finally found smooth equipment that does what it needs to do. It's got variable resistance. It's all there. It's
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
you were talking about the best exercises, but I think there is a best equipment. It's just the
Yeah.
price and the amount of footprint it takes up. I mean, whatever you want to compare MedX to Imagine Strength, I think they're pretty much one and the same at this point as far as the biomechanics of both of them. But those things, in my opinion, I've never been on anything smoother. I've never been on whatever Josh Trentine created. I forget what that was. Renex equipment. I know he designed his own equipment. I've never tried any of that, so I can't attest to that. But I've tried every piece of MedX and Imagine Strength, and man, they are butter. Oh my God. But again, does your musculature know the difference? Probably not. Even if I
It
had the
doesn't.
space, the footprint that leg press takes up, the footprint the pullover takes up, they're massive pieces. But if you can, pay some money to get a training session in a studio that has that just for the experience, damn, are those nice.
Yeah, and Doug McGuff, doesn't he have all medics or majority
He's
of
got some
medics?
he's got some Ken Hutchins super slow systems in one of them. Matt Green, who we interviewed on this podcast, actually trained at McGuff's facility, not with McGuff, but he trained at an Ultimate Exercise. And because he was a hit guy, I think they let him stay in there for like a full hour and just play with everything, which is
Wow.
very nice of them. But yeah, he said he's got some really crazy Ken Hutchins super slow stuff from back in the day that they don't manufacture anymore.
Okay.
But he said everything was top notch, super smooth. Yeah, perfect strength curves, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, some stuff out there is crazy. But commercial gym wise, if you can get in a commercial gym that has hammer strength equipment, that's probably your best bet,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I agree. It's a lot of the stuff is generic, and again, the generic stuff is usually they've copied the higher end stuff, but if they cheap out in certain areas, you're going to notice it, and if they don't
Yeah,
maintain it, you're going to notice it a lot quicker.
yeah. And the other thing with those machines, they have independent moment arms, which with
Yeah.
people know issues like us, that's phenomenal. But when you're training older clients, all my stuff has fixed moment arms, meaning, you push one and they both move
Hmm.
because what's going to transpire if they're chest pressing, if one side's weaker, that they're going to be imbalanced, and I don't like that. So I got fixed moment arms on all my equipment just because I didn't want the independent moment arms. But
Yeah, and that could be a whole nother topic, but we'll touch on it really quickly because I know like one of the I believe it was the Nautilus leg press that was pretty big, did have individual. I think you might be able to put a pin into lock it. I'm not sure, but it was individual legs. So it was two plates, and you push, and each leg is pushing individually like that.
yeah, that was their
And
duo squat.
yeah, and I think that's a great concept, but I also think there's a lot of room for somebody getting hurt if they're not really diligent about what they're doing because you have a weak leg and or you're pushing and you're not seated right because you just hopped into the machine and you're not positioned correctly and you're pulling crooked or pushing unevenly. That's going to affect the core. You could, and instead of stabilizing and strengthening the core with those individual movement arms, you could injure yourself. So I think it's great that you have everything kind of locked in there. So you've taken away that variable that could, in some cases, cause an injury.
Yeah, or I've seen people use the duo squat and they'll fire out with one leg and then lock out with such like force that it makes me cringe. And then they'll bring that leg in and fire out the other one and lock that knee so hard that, oh my God, I'm like, you are waiting for
Yeah,
an injury. You are completely misusing this beautiful piece of equipment.
it's true. It's just, and that's the way it is. I mean, we're at the 30-minute mark, but that's the way it is with any piece of equipment. I mean, you could take a set of dumbbells or a barbell and do a perfect curl or perfect lateral raise, or you could just be sloppy and throwing stuff up, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you are going to injure yourself because you're not respecting your body or the equipment. I mean, it's like that with anything, and I think machines take away a lot of that risk because again, you're not going to drop a machine on your head. You're going to could drop a dumbbell on your head, but you still have to be very conscious of, you're in that machine to perform a specific exercise with a specific movement. Do it that way. Don't try to cheat it. Don't try to ego lift. Even if nobody else in the gym, people will ego lift just because they have to beat their last session, and they'll cheat and they'll twist and they'll turn, and it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't help you in any way. Yeah, your number went up on your piece of paper or on your phone, but beyond that, you're not getting a benefit.
Very true. All
All
right, man.
right.
We're over the time already, so we'll close it and we'll continue on next week.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure. This was
Yeah.
a good one. Again, we've been getting a lot of, and we always get, these are big questions people get. So hopefully we shed some light on it for you guys. And, you'll look at things a little differently. Look at the best exercise that you're thinking, a different way to search for it, or your rep speed, maybe doing a little more control, or not, again, being so dogmatic, thinking I need to do this because this person did it, and find what's most comfortable for you. I mean, that's the whole purpose of what we're doing, is to kind of to make fitness and health more accessible and kind of cut through the fluff. There's a lot of stuff out there that sounds really good on paper, but when you put it into application, it's just noise.
Agreed, man. Well, it was great to talk to you. Can't believe we're on episode 10. That's awesome.
I know, this is great. All right. Until next week.
See you then.